So yeah, I'm Brennan Knotts. I'm going to be talking about using behavioral segmentation to increase paywall conversion. As Hannah said, I work at RevenueCat now. I head up our customer success team, so I work with our enterprise customers to implement RevenueCat, to just give them advice on best practices around in-app subscriptions. If you're not familiar with RevenueCat, I mean, basically our product is making it as easy as possible to build a subscription app, analyze a subscription app, and grow a subscription app. Before I kind of dive into the meat of my presentation, I want to talk about a stat. So, like I said, one of our product categories is helping you grow your subscription app. One of our tools is an experimentation tool, right? So you can A/B test different pricing and things like that. So people run a lot of experiments, and when you look at the results of their experiments, one thing jumps out at you immediately, which is more than half of them fail. So failure in this case is you had an idea for a way to change your paywall that you thought was going to make you more money. Turns out if you had actually run that to all your users, you would have made less money. So in our book, that's a failure. My job, our mission is to help developers make more money. So my job is to do the same with our customers. And you can see that in the data here. So winning experiments, that means the new idea you had was better than whatever you were running currently, right? So we see that only 42% of experiments have a higher initial conversion rate, and that 47% of experiments have a higher realized LTV. So that's just like actually making more money from your customers. And I'm calling this out mostly as a huge cop-out because I'm going to talk about some ideas today. I don't know if they're going to work for you. But also, it's clear that nobody else knows if they're going to work for themselves either. So we're kind of all in this together. So what are we talking about? Let's kind of break it down. The first part here is segmentation. Super simple concept. We're just talking about grouping users based on who they are or how they behave. And of course, the who they are or how they behave is demographics versus kind of activity and behavior. And then the second piece of this is the paywall conversion piece. So you can think about this very literally, which is you have a paywall, you're trying to convert users. Usually you're trying to convert users to pay you something, but you might be thinking about conversion in different terms, right? You might be thinking about, I just want registrations. Maybe I just want them to start a free trial, things like that. And I like to think about it even more broadly, and I stole this slide from Phil Carter. If you saw his talk earlier today on the subscription value loop, I didn't want to steal his thunder. I didn't know if his presentation was after mine, so I put these redacted things in. But when we talk about paywall conversion, I actually think about this broadly in terms of value capture. So we're going to talk about segmenting your users, and ultimately, how do you want to use that information around the segmentation to capture more value? And there's lots of ways you can do that besides just optimizing your paywall, right? Maybe you're going to develop an entirely new product tier that you can add to your paywall. Maybe you're going to change, which features are gated versus which features aren't gated. The idea is the same, which is, segmentation. Who are my users? What are they doing? How can I use that information to just make more money? So using behavioral segmentation to increase paywall conversion. We're going to run through some ideas. You can really start to run away with this, right? You can start to wander off into the wilderness, right, and kind of get carried away with doing segmentation. And so, to kind of keep you grounded, I want you to think about there's only two reasons to even bother spending your time and resources on this. One of them is persuasion, and the other one is price discrimination, right? So persuasion, we're just talking about, okay, if I'm segmenting my users, how can I use that information to persuade them to convert? What are some things about that particular segment that I can utilize inside my paywall? Whereas an example here would be Epocrates is an app that uses RevenueCat. They are a very old school medical app in the sense that they've been around since the Palm Pilot days, right? And they kind of have two distinct audiences. One is nurses and one is doctors. And so, when they think about what benefits of our app appeal to each of those audiences, they might present a different paywall. They might optimize some different things on that paywall. So that's an example of kind of persuasion and how you can use that segmentation to think about persuasion. And the next one's price discrimination, which to me always sounds horrible. I know it's kind of a technical term. You hear it in economics textbooks. I don't love it, but I left it in here mostly so I could throw this joke in here, which is, what is this? It's a cheese shredder. It's its positive name. Some people might call it a sponge ruiner. That's its negative name. Either way, we're talking about the same thing. And so instead of persuasion and price discrimination, maybe we're just talking about personalized pricing, right? So personalized pricing just being, how can I find the price that each customer is willing to pay? And to kind of jump into a quick little economics lessons, when I think about personalized pricing, I always think about this chart. Phil may have talked about this earlier. You see it all the time. But think about a graph where on the vertical axis, your y-axis, you have the max price a user is willing to pay for whatever you're trying to offer them. Then on the horizontal axis, picture each of these data points being an individual user, right? And so each individual user might have a different willingness to pay. And then just kind of pretend for a second that we're like putting these users in order from left to right, maximum willing to pay to the users who are not really willing to pay you very much at all. And then let's draw this line, right? These are all the potential prices you could pay, down to 0. And then the area under the curve is how much money you could make, right? So you have an app, you decide to charge a single price. That's a data point here. Now, you got to take into mind all these different users and all their willingness to pay. If you just charge one price, how many of these users can you actually reach? You just draw, you're charging one price, you just draw a straight line over to the left, see where that intersects with your kind of pricing line, and then this area right here is your revenue. So if you charge one price, you're only going to capture those users where it intersects, and that is the amount of revenue that you can capture there. And then you've got this other space here. What happens to that? I mean, that's basically just your lost revenue, right? Those users aren't willing to pay your price. You're not going to make that money. So let's think about this a different way. Let's pretend there's a world where you can charge any price you want, and you can find each individual user, and you know exactly what they're willing to pay. So you actually have tons of prices along this line, right? In this case, the area under the curve is the complete area under the curve. And of course, your revenue here is a lot bigger than what we saw on that other chart, right? And so this is what personalized pricing is really about. Personalized pricing, the perfect personalized pricing is charging each user the maximum they are willing to pay. So again, really only 2 reasons that we're even talking about segmentation. If you can use this information to persuade the user, more powerfully, or if you can personalize the price to them so that you can make more money. And, given the space we're in with apps, we really don't care that much about charging users less, right? It's not like we're selling a physical good where it costs me $20 to make this, so I don't want to sell it less than $20. I'm kind of willing to go pretty close to 0 for each customer if I can just figure out what is the maximum they're willing to pay me, and to also make sure that only that customer gets that price and these other customers who are willing to pay me more don't get that price. So with that, let's jump into some examples. I'm going to show some paywalls here and some different ways you can kind of think about behavioral segmentation. And also I've got these different kind of names for different types of behavioral segmentation, really focusing on the behavior aspect here, so not really talking about demographics, right? Like we've probably, when you think about segmentation, you might easily think about location. Like where is this customer located? Like, oh, they're in Europe, so maybe I'm going to charge them a different price. We're talking about behaviors. And so one of them that I like to talk about is feature knocking. The behavior here is you have a user who's trying to access one of your gated features. And so presumably in this case, users can get into your app without paying. Maybe you have some free functionality, or at least they can look around. They try to tap on some functionality that requires a subscription. The insight here is like clearly they're expressing interest in this. Maybe it's just basic curiosity, but maybe they actually are hoping that they can use this feature right now without having to pay you. But there's some signal there in terms of this feature is interesting to them. And so what are some ways that you can take this information and kind of personalize the price to that user? One way could be to adjust the free trial length. So they've said, hey, I'm interested in this. And so maybe what it would take to actually get them to convert into paying is just giving them a chance to play with it. So give them a longer free trial. You could also develop a premium tier, and this is a little bit more involved, for just that feature, right? So maybe they don't care about your other features. Maybe they just care about this one. There's a price they're willing to pay. Less, probably, for this one. So something worth trying. And then you can also price based on the value of the feature. I mean, maybe this is one of the features of your app that doesn't have a ton of value, but it has some value. Maybe you can lower the price for that particular user to just access that feature. In terms of persuasion, if they're trying to access this feature, certainly doesn't hurt to double down on here's all the benefits of this feature that you're maybe not even thinking about. Similarly, maybe they're thinking about this feature and they know that's interesting to them, but maybe they don't know about all the other features that they are going to get if they subscribe to your premium subscription. So maybe it's worth calling those out as well. And of course, adding testimonials. These are just random ideas. I probably could have made a laundry list here, but other users who have used this feature and how valuable they found it, certainly a powerful way too. But you're really customizing it to this user trying to access this feature. In terms of some examples that I think are interesting, Visco, it's a video and photo editing app. They actually have this cool feature where when you try to use one of their features, they pop up with this call to action. There's two calls to action. So one is upgrade to Pro. So maybe if that user is willing to convert right now, you're going to let them convert. But if not, you can also try it out. And so this is like a free trial without really going through a free trial. It's not like this is going through the App Store itself. They're just letting you use the feature. And then you play with the feature, and then they gate you being able to save the photo, right? And at that point, they pop up, which is essentially another paywall, talking about the benefits of the premium subscription to use, features called Montage, to use Montage. But then they also talk about the other features that you get with premium, really kind of catering the message to this particular feature and this user. Similarly, there's an app called Citizen, which is a safety app. It gives you alerts about things that are happening in your area. Their paywall is customized to the exact feature that you're trying to access. So let's say you try to access a feature, it pops up this paywall. The first benefit statement they're going to give you is for this feature. If it was a different feature, the benefit statement would be towards that feature. But then they also have a carousel that shows you all the other benefits you get with the premium subscription. So again, just that little bit of extra customization and personalization of the message to the user to really capitalize on the feature knocking, as I call it. Another behavior is looking to cancel. So users decided they wanted to cancel. They're going into your settings, probably looking for the cancel button, right? The insight here is they've told you they want to cancel. So even if you don't know why they're canceling, you can probably make some educated guesses. Personalizing price here, maybe they would stay around if the price was less. Maybe they just want to downgrade, right? So they don't need all this functionality. You could offer to upgrade them for free, right? Just try to give them something to stick around. On the persuasion side, you can provide support, ask the user why they are canceling, really using surveys to get more information from the user. Couple examples here. This actually isn't an app. This is a new feature we're building at RevenueCat, but it kind of takes the user through this exact flow, right? They came into your settings. They're asking for a refund. They want to change plans. Maybe they just want to cancel. So what you can do is if they select, for example, cancel subscription, you could immediately trigger a paywall asking them why they want to cancel. And if they say it's too expensive, then you could offer them a cheaper price, right, to downgrade. There's an app called Flighty that does something similar here where they have, an annual subscription. They have a month-to-month subscription, but they also have a weekly subscription that's a little bit hitting. When you go into their settings, you find it, and so maybe that's all you need to stick around is like, hey, I didn't want to commit to another year, but like maybe I'm willing to commit to weekly because I have some flights coming up. Another behavior example is paywall abandoning. So the behavior here is they started to subscribe and then they didn't finish, right? They didn't confirm. They didn't use Face ID to confirm. The insight is they're showing you that they're interested, but then they got cold feet at the last minute. Maybe all you need to do is offer them a discount, right? So maybe they also need a longer free trial. They're just like, maybe this doesn't do what I need it to do. So that's one way you could personalize the price. Similarly, maybe they have some questions. So maybe this is a time to say, hey, do you have some questions? Do you want to talk to our support team? That's a way to kind of personalize the persuasion aspect of it. And this is actually Superwall has a really good case study on doing this. They call it, it's kind of like abandoned cart, right? But it's in the app. User clicks subscribe. They're asked to confirm. They don't confirm. They immediately pop up a paywall with a lower 50% off price. And then here's the link to kind of look at their case study. They kind of ran this for a couple weeks with some apps and saw that ultimately 17% of the revenue that came in during the window period for this test came from these abandoned paywalls with the discount. Flow is another example. If a user dismisses their paywall, they show you, again, another paywall with just a cheaper price. Just trying to find what is that user willing to pay me. Maybe it's not as much as some of the other users I have. Freeloading. So this is, you've got users, they're free users. They're in there all the time, but they're never converting. The insight here is like clearly there's something valuable here, and now we just kind of got to figure out what it is that's going to make them convert. Maybe it's price. Maybe they need a discount. Maybe they need a cheaper premium tier. Maybe the features they're using for free should really be behind the paywall, and that's what's going to make them convert. Similarly, this is another place where maybe you ask the user, like, what's going to make you convert? What would be interesting to you? Here's just an example of some discounts. Like, if you're going to offer a discount, make it big, make it obvious. Don't try to hide it. And I also have the Black Friday sale here because, in a way, this is kind of doing personalized pricing, right? Like, maybe you're not thinking about it that way, but there's probably users who are waiting for that, holiday sale every year, and they're going to use that as a reason to finally convert at a price that fits for them. I got another flighty example here. Again, defaults to the annual plan, but they also have a weekly plan that has less functionality, which actually tripped me up because I wanted to use calendar sync and didn't realize because it's in very fine print that it doesn't work with the weekly subscription, so don't do that, but just another good idea here. Yeah, and then last one, putting on paywall blinders. Some users have seen your paywall so many times that they don't even look at it anymore, right? So the insight here is like you've done your best, that's not working, time to get crazy. Let's do something drastic. So just completely redesign your paywall. Show this particular user something they've never seen before. Similarly, do the opposite of whatever you're doing now. Whatever your message is now, maybe think about what the opposite could be. Here's an example of an app. There's a lot going on, very colorful, kind of busy. Maybe you just make it super simple. Also, maybe you were trying to sell them a subscription. Maybe you sell them a one-time payment. And then here's another example. Like when I talk about extremely do something different, Balance, this meditation app, they offer you a 1-year free trial. I honestly don't know how that nets out for them, but it is an example of doing something that's completely different than what maybe you're typically doing. And we're kind of running out of time here, so I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit. To do this yourself, it's a simple 2-step process. Identify a segment, personalize the paywall. Segmenting on demographics versus behaviors. There's a lot of ideas here, and I have a link to these slides afterwards, so you can kind of look at some of these yourself. But feel free to go crazy during the brainstorming stage in terms of what behaviors can I maybe think about, what demographics. Similarly, what can I change? What are these different levers I can pull to try to convert these users on the pricing angle as well as the persuasion angle? And then we also have a blog post here with 24 different ways to optimize pricing. Again, just a great place to go for brainstorming. And then to kind of wrap up with some tips, find a tool to help. Use something like a Superwall or a RevenueCat or a Purchasely to kind of help you do this stuff. Try the easy stuff first. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there just to get started. Try a lot of things. Don't limit yourself. Especially if it's easy, then do a lot of it, and you got a tool to help make it fast. Experiment if you can. That way, you're not one of those people launching one of the 50% of experiments that fails, and you're actually losing money. And then don't be afraid to ask users questions. I mean, if you can't make money off of a user, the next best thing would be learning something from those users. And a lot of users are usually happy to answer like one question, right? And then leverage the power of discounting. I have at least one of my customers who's just very nervous about offering a cheaper price. And as you can see in the app space, it's kind of easy to target a user, offer just that user a specific price without offering all your users that discounted price. And so keep it simple. So with that, I will wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Again, here's a link to download the slides if you want to see the rest of it. So thank you.